All right, I'm live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, parents and families. I'm Fernando, Learner Community Guy, and I'm super excited to be here with you today to talk about Makers Month and all that we have going on for Makers Month as we get ready for our Adventure Learning Conference on January 27th and January 28th. Yeah, see that there? Yeah. So super excited to also have Derek Runke here from Makey Makey, the director of programs and products. And we will be exploring making and innovating with learners and his unique insights. But before we get to that, I want to introduce the concept of our learner community themes that we will be celebrating in 2023. Each month, we plan to have different themes in the learner community through free events that we can inspire your learners with new passions, new interests, meet their new favorite educator, and also maybe their next Outschool friend. So thank you so much for being here as we introduce Makers Month and our monthly themes. I'll give you a sneak peek into our monthly themes that we have coming up. We'll have in January, we're gonna have Makers Month. In February, we have Outschool Around the World, celebrating our global community. March is World Arts and Literature Month, exploring world arts and literature. That's also the planned release of our literary magazine for those who submitted content to the literary magazine. In April, we have our Moneymakers Month, so exploring, entrepreneurship that a lot of learners have their, have their businesses, and as they're looking to develop their careers as well. In May, we have Outschool Talent Show. So looking for ways for learners to share their talent with the community. That's always fun. And in June, we will be having our science fair. So we look forward to keep an eye out for our programs. Of course, you can always follow the learner community, our teaching profile, and that is where we list our free events for learners. That being said, this month is Outschool Makers Month, and a part of Makers Month, we're celebrating creating any project-based learning, something where learners create. We have the free group Makers Month challenges that you can find on our profile. We also released the Outschool Multimedia Club for teens this year, for content creators, teens who like to create either podcasts or snippets for social media, etc. For reaching out to learners and helping inspire learners as well. And of course, at the end of the month, we have Adventure. So Adventure is our learning conference for parents and educators that you can find on our link, outschooler.me, Adventure. And there you will be able to find our programs and our speakers. During Adventure, we will be featuring Julie Bogart from Brave Writer, Blair Lee from C Homeschoolers, Janice Wintermeyer from Canva, she's a learning consultant, Brittany Patrick from the Emoji Collective, Debbie Reber, Tilt Parenting, and also featuring educators and meeting some of the Outschool staff. So we certainly hope to see you there. On that note, we are celebrating as we prepare for Adventure and how Outschool can make your year. We are celebrating making for learners. All sorts of ways that they can make, from anything that's hands-on to software to coding. And let's see, the Make Your Year Adventure programming, as you'll find, I'll go ahead and share the screen so that you can see. When you go to this link, you will see our program for Adventure, where you can, there we go, where you can see where you can register for the event. Ooh, you can even see my mouse there. Oh, perfect. So you can see, once you go to that link, you can register for the event, and that will take you to Hopin for all the parent and educator events. We have classes that are themed around making by educators who are involved in the community and also celebrate making in their classes. So a lot of projects, hands-on projects that learners can create and share. And then if you'll scroll down, you will see our free programs in during the Adventure main stage. And these are the events that we have in the learner community during the Adventure conference. We have our opening ceremony where learners can meet the learning community team and get a sneak preview into what is coming in the year. We'll also have our Canva t-shirt design challenge where they can enter a contest with their Canva design by creating a free student Canva account and creating and submitting their t-shirt design. Then I'm very excited for our keynote speaker, which will be Zyla Foxland. We're going to meet and make with Zyla Foxland and make something out of recycled materials. And we're not going to tell you what that challenge is, but really be a super fun challenge for learners to come in, bring some, some paper, cardboard, tape, construction paper, just something they can create with and create something to prepare for our trash and show. And the trash and show is where you can make anything that you can wear out of recycled materials, and learners will, parade around and show other learners what they've made, or simply just attend and see what other learners have made. So we're super excited for our adventure weekend, and hopefully you will find something that you would like to do either for you and your family or with your learners with us. But with no further ado, we are excited to talk about making and inspire our learners about making and creating. And with that, I wanted to welcome Derek Runke to the stage, the Director of Product and Programs at Makey Makey. And now I'm looking for your window. I got to find it. And there you go. Derek, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem, Fernando. And it looks like I'm going to be joining you a lot more because I totally want to do the meet and make. And what was the trash what?
Trash and show.
Trash and show.
Trash and show. Yeah, it's sort of like fashion, except trashing.
I'm game.
Because you're using recycled materials.
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, that'd be awesome. Much. You have learners too.
I do.
Oh, right. And you, so, I forgot in your intro, I wanted to introduce you as, so Derek, if it's okay to share that you're also a classroom educator, correct?
Recovering classroom educator, yes.
And you're also a homeschooling parent.
Yes. Yeah. We have been homeschooling our two boys, 12 and 13 and 10, coming out of COVID. So we are new transition homeschool parents. Yes.
Ooh, well, welcome. If we have a lot of parents who are homeschoolers, so if you ever need, we have some pretty excellent resources for homeschooling parents. I'm not going to lie. I lurk in the Outschool homeschooling parent community. I'm always like, ooh, I'm going to take that snippet with me. Well, would you mind telling us about a little bit about Makey Makey? Because there are probably a lot of parents who maybe have never heard about Makey Makey. Then your role in Makey Makey, and then more specifically your journey as an educator and in your role.
Yeah, if you've never seen Makey Makey, it looks like this. It's a little circuit board. It's an invention that was brought to fruition 10 years ago out of an MIT graduate project that then transitioned into a Kickstarter project. And I think it still is one of the top 10, if not top 5 Kickstarter projects when Kickstarter was like the way to launch a new product. And what Makey Makey does is it turns basic circuitry, it plays as the bridge between physical invention and physical things to digital things. So it emulates a keyboard and mouse for your computer, and you can turn something like a banana into your space bar. And so it allows kids and even adults to take that and be able to build really cool controllers and inputs for your computer as a way to get started in inventing and building. So that is Makey Makey in a nutshell. And we've coined the term invention literacy is how we approach learning around that. Is again, approaching it from a literal sense, we learn to read and write. And then in the written word and verbal, we can do that the same way with the physical things around us, right? I can look at an invention. How did they build that? How does it work? And how do I use it? And can I apply that to something that I invent or make something better?
Derek, that reminded me that I have a snippet of one of our learners who submitted a Makey Makey project. Do you mind if I share that?
Go for it. Do it.
It'll help. Let's see if we'll see how the video interface works with both of us. But it's a little 50-second video.
Hi, Outschool makers. I'm using Makey Makey for my circuit. It takes everyday objects and turns them into my circuit. I'm using peppers, And I'm going to be playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the Makey Makey piano. So I got to put my hand in the salt water because the other alternative is pinching myself for the whole thing, which I'm not going to be doing.
So when I saw that was submitted for our last Makers Month that we had, and I was like, oh man, parents need to know about this. This is so cool. Look what this learner has done. So I mean, yeah. So what's your, I have so many questions about that. First off, between what are the skills that he used and put together, and then also just more about your role, in your role in product, and your journeys as an educator as well.
Yeah, like my take on that is I just love, the main thing is with Makey Makey is curiosity, because the barrier, like, it's about, if it doesn't work, you move on, right? So there's the failure, like there's no epic fail with Makey Makey. It is, it's like, oh, it doesn't work, I move on to the next thing. And so that fail, it's not a painful failure. So I might be stealing some thunder from later on, but so that for me, it's like, yeah, like let's try peppers and let's try salt water. I want somebody out there to play Mary Had a Little Lamb on lambs, because you could do that. You just have to get the lambs to like stand still long enough to play the song. And so, because if I was holding one of those wires and you gave me a high five, it would work. So I want to see somebody, and it would go completely viral, is to be able to play Mary Had a Little Lamb on lambs, and go from there. So that's my take on that. In terms of my role, I manage, first of all, our company is a small company. It's 8-person team for the most part. So even though I have a title and stuff, I do multiple things, but I manage our product. So existing products, I make sure that they get manufactured on time and they get to our warehouse on time. So things like, when does it get built and how many, and how does it get to our warehouse? So if you've seen on the news, obviously there's a lot of things like supply chain issues have been my job for the past 2 years. So a lot of that office-y stuff, but then I get to also help oversee what are the new products that are going to be coming out, and prototyping some of those ideas, and prototyping them also from like a teacher user perspective. So not only what is it that we're inventing or building as product, but how does it get used, and how could a student use it? How do we use it in an educational sense as well? So that's, in a nutshell, that's me. If you sent a tech support or customer service email to us, I'll probably be one of the people to respond to it as well. So I get to do a lot of things, and it's fun.
Awesome. I've got a list of questions if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So I think making is a pretty vague term. So how do you define making, and how do you get learners started on it?
Oh man, making is just, it's creating and it's generating a different thing from other things. And I know I just answered a very general question with a very general answer. But it's one of those things where I was thinking about this actually today, and it was like, what is the lowest and easiest thing if someone wanted to start making or building something and working with their hands, because that's ultimately what it is, whether I'm even typing on a keyboard or making something with wood. What is the easiest, and something we all do every day is make food. We cook. And that's something that we all have kitchens. So we all have that shop, right? So a lot of people look at, the space that I'm in is a prototyping wood shop. People are like, well, I don't have the tools, but everybody pretty much has a kitchen. There's some type of food in a refrigerator for the most part. go cook something and create with that food. And your feedback loop is, did it taste good? Did I get sick from that food? And you will learn over time, the more and more you cook, you get better at your craft. And, you can go watch cooking shows, you can read cookbooks, but it's an easy way to create. And that's probably, if you're thinking about like homeschool parents, everybody's got a kitchen. One of the best things to do is sit down when you eat something. What do you think's in here? What are the ingredients? And we can kind of dissect food. I'm thinking of my youngest kid is perfect at that because he likes to dissect his meal but never eat it. But dissect what's in this and then go make a meal with those things. And does it taste different than the other meal we had? Why not? So you can take those skills and then translate them to something like building in wood or electronics or coding. Again, it's just about curiosity and play in that sense.
That's awesome. I've never thought of the kitchen as a maker's lab or a maker space. Essentially, right? You got tools, you got ingredients, and then you just have to come at it with your, innovation and creativity. And then I like that you add that feedback loop. And would you say that's so, to understand a little more correctly, right? There's the, you called out pulling out ingredients, making something, turning it into something else, and then a feedback loop. Yeah. And it seems like there's a loop to it where you review it and assess it.
Yeah. Did it taste good? Right? Because if it doesn't taste good, I'm going to spit it out, or I'm going to take a bite and be polite about it and maybe not finish my plate. And if people watch at least here in the States, Food Network, there's a show called Chopped, where chefs get 3 ingredients and they're random ingredients, and they got to turn these really random dispersed ingredients into something delicious, and they're being judged by professional chefs. And at my house, we do that on a regular basis. So I will, as a parent, pull down the 3D ingredients, knowing that I will probably eat something that's made out of these no matter what, because I'm going to be the one eating it, right? I'm not going to give anchovies, leftover cake, and something like that to my kid right away. But and then I say, go transform these things into something delicious. Half the time you get bread pudding, because that's just dumping everything in and then baking it. But that's right. That's the idea, is like getting used to taking these things and transforming them. And then, did it work? Yes or no? And then how do I get better at it? What could I have done differently? So that there's that reflection state, I guess.
A term you mentioned was invention literacy.
Mm-hmm.
Can you throw that at me again and how you define
yeah,
that?
So if you think about how you normally think of the term literacy, my ability to read and write, basically. So be able to take information in and then output information. You can look at the built environment the same way as you do books. So somebody else wrote a book. I can read that book, and they crafted those words, right? I can look at something like this keyboard, and I can actually read this, right? These are all buttons, and it's very dusty, but these are all buttons, and this is a trackpad, and somehow this connects, even though there's no cord on it, it connects to my computer. And so I'm actually reading this and asking questions about it. And then can I incorporate that into something I create? So I'm learning kind of the inputs and outputs of a device. I'm learning that, well, a keyboard is roughly this wide, and the keys are in a specific place because it's a standardized thing. So being able to read the built environment, and then how do I incorporate what I learn into the things that I built? It's like handles of things, right? If you've ever held on to something that doesn't, why cups, right? Paper cups, they have a shape like this. If you've ever tried to hold on to something in the opposite direction, it slides out of your hand. So it's like
I've never thought of that.
wire cups that way. And if you're holding onto a glass that's straight sides, it's more susceptible just sliding out of your hand, and your hand actually gets tired holding it more. So there's all these design elements in our world that, if you're looking, will inform your invention whenever you're looking at building something or improving something.
So how do you get learners started? I'm really fascinated by that concept because I think it parallels, like, as a music educator, I consider music as a language, and you're right, you play with it just like you do language. And so how do you start encouraging learners to learn that language of innovation, or
One of
of
the
building or
things,
making?
yeah, one of the things is observation. So observing the world around them, and a lot of times it's right. I'll hold up the keyboard again. This thing's it's wrapped in plastic, but it has screws. So one of my favorite things to do early on.
Did that cut out on his end, or did that cut out? Oh, there we go. I don't know if you cut out on my end or if you cut out for everyone else, but do you mind repeating it back? It stopped for me, at least. It stopped where you said it has screws.
Yeah, it has screws. And so one of my favorite things to do early on with inventions and learning what's inside here is dissecting inventions, taking things apart intentionally. So a lot of times when you do this in the classroom or do it with kids, they take a hammer to it and they smash it to bits. And then you don't really know how things went together. But intentionally taking something apart with screws, laying all the parts out. What do you think that does? What do you think this does? What are these things? And then putting it back together and seeing if it still works. If it's something that's broken, taking apart and trying to identify where it's broken. And then what do you think we could do to improve that invention? If we can't repair it ourselves, what would you do to improve it if you could, right? So like a little geared motor, for example, I can take that geared motor apart, and I might not be able to build new gears, but I can say, hey, this gear is all torn up. It what could we make it out of? Metal? If we made it out of wood, how would it change it? So dissecting broken things and not throwing them away right away is probably one of the best ways to get started.
That's exciting. And I'm revisiting the times that I've let the kids take apart something that's broken or that I didn't need. But right, if I could have challenged, ourselves, to get back and see if we can make it back together.
Yeah.
Something that you'd mentioned when we'd spoken earlier was hardware versus software.
Yeah.
As a concept.
Yeah. We live in a digital world, and it's tough. I'm going to just say that it's tough because so many of the things that we are surrounded by operate by software. And when I say software, it's not just like a computer in terms of a screen and keyboard and mouse. I know we all struggle with screen time. But like the brake system on my car is operated by a computer, right? There's a microchip that someone programmed to be able to control when I press on the brakes that it applies brake pressure across all four wheels. So that's physical goods or physical hardware that's controlled by software, or what we call firmware in the world. Invention literacy tries to cover both of those things and understands that it's a Venn diagram between hardware and software, where the thermostat, I have a Nest thermostat, it's connected to the internet. It knows what the temperature is outside because it pulls down weather data from weather.com or some other server. It's smart because of all of that digital code that lives on it, the programming code that lives on it, but it also controls all the physical aspects of heating and cooling my house. So there's a relationship there that in a lot of ways can't be denied. And it's just a matter of, when we're learning those things, learning them in a smart way so that I'm not always sitting writing code in front of my computer all the time, but I'm also not trying to avoid my computer and just building everything out of wood all the time. The world existed a long time by building things out of wood. I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, but as we're looking at invention and moving forward, there's always probably going to be some type of code element in those things, and that's okay. But we need to treat it like just another element and not the end all be all reason to be learning how to code or write code.
I mean, at the end of the day, if exploring, making, and invention literacy just helps you feed yourself better, like that's pretty universal. It's a pretty universal concept, which I'm grateful that you introduced to me.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting! In a couple minutes, I'm gonna open up the floor to see if there are any parents. I'm not sure if you can see the comments that are on the side, but if there are any parents who have any questions, or any topics that you'd like to bring up. Yeah, Julie's asking if we're suggesting she should eat her pepper piano.
Yes.
Nicely done, Julie. Yes, yeah. Can you eat it after it's gone through the Makey Makey circuit?
So yes, you can eat it. Obviously, if you don't mind eating food that you've touched yourself, one of the I would say hazing things at trade shows, just to be funny. One of the hazing things we would do, because we'd have a piano of bananas. It's like, well, the new guy has to eat one of the bananas after everybody in the trade show's eaten it. So that's the running joke.
One question I wanted to ask you to expand upon was, right, that importance of failure. In the past, I've been on teams where we celebrate like epic failures. Like, if you're gonna fail hard, let us know, and tell us what you've learned. You said that we don't do epic failures, so I'm curious how you see that difference in the value.
So I think that there's value in epic failures, but if they're going to be epic failures, I would say you want them to happen early on. So I've done a number of prototyping side gigs so far in my career, and it's one of those things when you start working for other people, it's okay to fail and be the main. I would say the main thing is be transparent about your failures, and also failures will illuminate where you need help, right? So if I'm failing at something and I'm trying, it tells me that I need to try a different idea, try something new, but it also means that I need to bring in a new set of eyes to help evaluate what I'm failing at. I would say the biggest failure, those epic fails happen when you try to take on a whole project by yourself and you get 2 weeks from a deadline or 2 days from a deadline or 2 minutes from presenting and it doesn't work. And you should have asked for help 3 weeks ago. Those are not the failures you want to be celebrating, right? That's just me feeling bad and I'm going to get fired.
Yeah.
But hey, if I'm trying to prototype something, so for example, I deal a lot also in other electronics prototyping. If I release the magic smoke while I'm prototyping something, meaning I fried a circuit, that's good that it happened here in my shop. But if we're at like final prototyping and we're rolling out that product, we don't want to have it happen when it's in your living room and you plug the thing in, right? So you want to have it happen early, and you want to have it happen when that risk, the reward from that failure is high and not the risk being high.
Is there a way that you think is a helpful way to introduce that concept to learners at a young age and reinforcing it throughout an older age? That seems like a really important concept, I think, no matter what field we're in.
I think one of the values and where it shows up the most, and this is my classroom teacher self stepping in, is the importance of group work and working in a community, and so that there's somebody there to ask for help, and there's other people looking over your shoulder going, hey, I didn't realize that you could do that. So not only are you the one asking for help, but you're a halo effect of helping and building in a community. And I know that, with and I don't even want to bring up COVID, but with COVID, right, we've all been sucked to like we were all sucked to like working at home, and we didn't have somebody looking over our shoulders, and we weren't looking over somebody else's shoulder. And it made work really, really hard. From that sense, because then it's like I gotta like hold this thing up to the camera and, hey, do you see where the problem is? Here, like it just doesn't work that way. And so like being together, so again, group work for kids, and like even tricking them into like, hey, build a cake and build it without make it without sugar. Like you take a part away, that you almost set them up for failure, but like a small failure, so that they realize, hey, we need something sweet in this cake. So that then they have to come and ask for it. Yeah.
I like that. So working together, and you
Yep.
said the magic word, right? Community. I'm like,
Yep.
yes, community.
Being that it's in your title, right?
Yeah. Yeah, working together, getting feedback, from other folks before the large fail. And I like your aspect of group work and challenges. Right? And that's, I mean, I'm taking this even in how do I inspire the learners in the learning community. I like that. I even like that idea of create this, but create it without something to sort of boost that innovation.
I would even say, and I know like we want to answer questions too, but the one thing, the hardest thing to do, and it will be also the most valuable thing to do, is learning how to ask for feedback and critique, right? We never personally, it hurts to like have something that I made critiqued, but the only way for me to get better is to get feedback. And there's a proper way to give people feedback, but like you need to be able, I need to be able to give you the plate of food that I made and watch you consume it and see if you like it or if half the meal is left on the plate. So there's that feedback, but then well, was it too sweet, too salty? And you're like, no, I'm allergic to peppers. I don't, okay, well that makes sense, right? So yeah.
So I'm going to remind parents that if they want, they can chime in some questions. I do have some parent focused questions coming in. Do you have any favorite educational resources?
I'm trying to think of like alternative educational resources. So here's a couple of them. I am a big fan of Adam Savage. I know a lot of makers are, but his one day builds, just as an asterisk, Adam uses some colorful language sometimes. So like take that as a grain of salt. But you get to personally see, and there's a huge maker culture on YouTube, but for Adam, you get to see someone who works quickly and who's highly skilled at what he does build, and his reflection on that process. And so his YouTube channel called Tested, I would say, is a plethora of learning how to use a tool, him building something. Like I think his newest one was he built a sword, right? Like I would have no idea how to start. But he, spends hours building a sword, and a real sword. But I've learned, my kids have gotten more and more into like building props and some cosplay stuff, and learning how to, like, for example, weather something to make it look old. Like it was an amazing resource. So there's that. If you have a makerspace locally, it's a great place to get plugged in. They're not as prolific as they used to be in the past 5 years. I've seen some of them. The public libraries tend to have some type of makerspace, but in terms of kind of a community makerspace, some of them have kind of dwindled a bit. And again, just, yeah. So those would be the main resources. Maker Ed is a good one. Makey is a great resource if you're looking for some project resources for Makey Makey. Code.org if you're wanting to learn how to program or have your kids learn some code. Yeah, those are, I would say, the best ones. But I personally enjoy learning and watching, again, finding something you want to build and finding those tutorials and tutorial channels on like YouTube is, and honestly, it's one of the newest ways to learn. And I know it's screen consumption, but to watch a video and then go do that is different than just watching YouTube video after YouTube video, right? The key is watch it, hit stop, and then go do it.
I think that resonates with me in something that I learned. You know, I was studying music and audio technology, and I learned from my professors was that there was so much that they didn't know how to do, and they often would just look it up, and I'd see them just looking up. They're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do this. I'm going to look it up." And I was like, "Oh yeah, duh. That's how you learn to be really good at something. You just look up how to do it." I think that's a great reminder.
Yeah.
Some parents are saying, "Yeah, screens with purpose are awesome." And another good resource. Thank you for reminding us. Is that we're featuring Maker Zyla Foxlin in the learner community, and she's an amazing engineer and superbly creative, and she's got a lot of tutorials and just a lot of projects, and it's very inspiring to see her work, and we're super excited to have her in the learner community. So a slight plug for that. So thank you for the reminder there in the community. For homeschoolers, homeschooling, what was my question? Oh, homeschooling on a budget. I think you may have answered that one with the kitchen.
You recite, like, what you guys are gonna be doing for is it the adventure weekend? Like, digging through the recycling bin. You know, if you're looking to get a tool for a kid, a hot glue gun is like number one. And I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna come back. People are gonna be like cringe, but I would say the number 2 tool to get a kid used to using is an X-Acto knife. Right? Yes, it's dangerous. But if you go to the kitchen, you're going to be using knives as well. But like a sharp X-Acto knife and learning how to use that properly to cut cardboard, or like that, those skills will come in handy the rest of their lives. So a lot of people get flashy laser cutters and 3D printers. And I have a 3D printer sitting here that is collecting dust, because I can build something faster with an X-Acto knife and a straight edge than if I went and drew something and laser cut it. So that's one of those things where it's like learning how to use a straight edge, a ruler, an X-Acto knife, and a hot glue gun, and you can build amazing things.
Right, that's a good point. I think sometimes, or I think I've felt caught up by the end result of where I want to see my sons going, and bought these kits and these things that I think are just a couple years ahead, versus give them that right X-Acto knife and tape, or X-Acto knife and glue gun and cardboard, and if you can create with that, it's a really great starter point.
Yeah. Fernando, just someone leave a comment about Maker Faire, and that is true. If you have a Maker Faire community in locally, go, and it is you will spend the day there, and it is I've heard it called basically the Tech or Maker State Fair right? You still, because you have all the corn dog stands and you can get an elephant ear, but then you have literally a screen accurate R2D2 will drive right by you, beeping and bopping as you go by. And so many people are there wanting to share. We were talking about that share and that feedback loop. They're there to share what they've built and celebrate that. And that is, so if you're a person that's like, hey, here's my nerddom, right? I've been
bring
painting,
it.
I've been painting minis. I started painting minis just before COVID, but it was one of those hobbies that I picked up a lot. And it's like,
Did
that's
you
for
3D
me
print that
internally.
mini?
But if I went and shared, and I've learned so much from other people in playing these games and how to paint really tiny things. You learn so much by going and seeing other people's work. So that, go. If there's a maker fair, go.
I'm making a note of that one myself to see for my little ones. Awesome. Well, that's exciting. That's yeah. And I think that brings apart, again, that community aspect of sharing, right? It's just a community that you feel safe to share. And I think that's the exciting thing about online learning communities. Oh, good question. Let's see. How do you encourage kids to keep trying when they get blocked or make mistakes?
I would say if you're a parent or a teacher, a lot of times we want them to keep trying right then and there. And just like us adults, right? Sometimes you got to get up and walk away from it. You got to go for a walk. You got to go work out. I need to go do the dishes or something before I come back to this. Kids need the same thing. They should be treated the same way. And so, and it's hard when you're in a classroom teacher sense, and in a same sense, a homeschool teacher or homeschool parent, like your time is blocked out. It's like, hey, science time, or hey, it's science class. Sometimes just let the kid walk away and go do something else, but then make sure that they come back to it. And like, as adults, for the most part, if I'm trying to fix my car, obviously my car is not going to go anywhere. I got to come back to it and fix it at some point. But this shop's half full of half-finished projects. And I kind of bebop around between half-finished projects. When I get stuck with something, I go jump to the other project. I'll go to the gym and work out or go watch TV or something. But a lot of times, just changing the modality of my project will help me sand off the sharp corners of other projects.
Oh, nice. Good question, Julian. Thank you for that answer. Yeah, we do need that reminder as adults too, that it's okay just to let something set, go do something else, get a new perspective, come back to it. Well, I want to say thank you very much, Derek, for showing up with us today, and all your feedback and ideas. Certainly a lot for me to chew on, not only with work at the learner community, but also in my own, in our own homeschool. And hopefully that's helpful for parents as well. And I want to give you the opportunity. Is there any last words or anything that you might use to inspire the parents who are trying to inspire their learners?
If you have the opportunity, I would say their grandparents and great-grandparents, if they're still with you, are a huge source of knowledge when it comes to working with these things, I'm assuming, for the most part. The repairing, the sense of repair and self-maintenance and self-sustainable building and construction is being lost from our older generation in a lot of ways. And so spending time and learning and even just listening and letting grandma or grandpa tell their story is important. And so I would say that is like, don't make sure that you see them as a source of learning for your kids.
Oh, that was awesome. I'm really grateful for that lesson. I'm super excited. Just, yeah, how you phrase that. That was perfect. Well, thank you very much, Derek. Super, super happy to have you here
Anytime.
and your community presenting. Families and parents, I would encourage you to come to the adventure. You'll meet more amazing parents and educators, just like Derek here, January 27th, 28th. And be sure to please check out the learner programs, free events for learners to come and explore making and explore sharing with the community and learning as a community. So thank you so much, Derek. Thank you, parents. And we look forward to seeing you all at Adventure.
Thank you all.